hard time connecting with people. And that might sound bizarre to anyone who knows me, because it seems like I'm connected with a lot of people. And I am. But I have a hard time being connected to people. Getting connected, getting there is really hard. Staying there. Getting there is easy, actually. Staying there is hard. I don't know why I'm so good at it initially. And then everything after that is just like a Sisyphean uphill battle, where I'm also somehow Icarus. Sisycharusian. That sounds terrible. Because I always aim for more than I can sustain when it comes to connecting with people, or the number of people I try to connect with. And I think it's because I know that in reality, if I am up here, the reality is that I'll connect with at least a few in a real way, in a meaningful way that's sustainable. But I think that also kind of perpetuates the problem, because I always feel like no matter how good I get at connecting with people and sustaining meaningful relationships, there's always more than I can sustain. And so there's always somebody, usually lots of somebodies, who I'm not doing a very good job of connecting with. And so that just, I think, kind of perpetuates this identity within myself of not good at connection. And that's just one piece of the puzzle. That's definitely not the whole thing. I think the bulk of it stems from the fact that growing up undiagnosed, autistic, and ADHD, and in some pretty significant childhood abuse circumstances, I was wired to be whatever you want me to be. Who do I need to be right now so that you are happy and I am safe? And that doesn't really lend itself to true connection, does it? Because people are like, I want you to be you. I want to connect with you. But I'm still scanning them so that I can figure out under the surface what they really mean. And people do always mean something under the surface. Like, they can enjoy who you are, for sure. But it's impossible for anyone other than you to really know who you are in here, right? And so when they say, I want you to be you, what they really mean, and this isn't a judgment, I'm not saying it should be any different, but what they really mean is, I want you to be the version of you that I have constructed in my head that I feel good about. Now, every now and then along comes a person who is aware that they've constructed this image of you in their head, and they say, that's not who I want you to be. I'm aware that that's who I think you are, and that's great. But I do truly want you to be you. And what that looks like is when you step outside of the bounds of that preconceived version of yourself that lives in their head, they know that that's a them thing. And sometimes the real version of you is kind of shitty, objectively, right? We're all kind of shitty sometimes. It's kind of what we're doing here. We're shitty sometimes, and then we figure it out. And the people I feel like I can truly connect with are the ones who know that. And so when I'm a little bit shitty and I don't match this idealized version of me that lives in their head, they bring it to me and they say, hey, here's kind of what I thought was going on, or what I would like to be going on with who you are. And here is what just happened. Can you help me make sense of this? Or, hey, I need to tell you how this impacted me when you showed up this way and it didn't meet my expectations. What can we do about that? Here's what I'm going to do. Here's my part that I own. And then here's the part that maybe you might want some feedback on, because I know it's important to you to work on yourself. Those are the people who I'm able to stay in connection with. I'm kind of realizing in the moment that I have this deep, deep fear of having my flaws perceived, like in my body. Because that was not a safe situation for a good portion of my life. For me to make mistakes and have flaws and to not be who someone wanted me to be was, nope, don't want to do that. So of course, I am terrified all of the time of having the real me perceived, when the real me is not the most ideal version of me yet. But also it really sucks when I do genuinely feel like I am killing it. I'm so self-aware of all my flaws. I'm working on what I can. I'm accepting what is so that I can move towards what I want to be with awareness and intention. And someone comes up to me and they hold up a mirror to an aspect of myself that I was not previously aware of. Because, oh my God, my whole job when my nervous system was developing was, you better get ahead of the game. You better figure out all the ways you could possibly make someone upset and get ahead of it. Be aware of it, be self-deprecating about it, not work on it. We didn't get to that till later, much later in life, because that wasn't what people really wanted. You know, they just wanted to have control over you by pointing out your flaws to you. So working on it was a much later development, but that was my job. Get ahead of the game. Be aware of every possible flaw, mistake, blemish before anyone else. So when someone sees something in me that I don't like before I do, I've left the plane. I've left the planet. I'm no longer in my body. I'm so dysregulated and afraid and defensive, and I'm not me in that moment. I am a wild, caged creature fighting for its life. And that's also really hard to connect with. But thank God, or whatever's out there, that I've gained so much awareness and healing in that area that I'm able to sit with it now. When someone I care about brings something to me, I'm grateful. It still sucks. Don't get me wrong. It doesn't feel good. But I'm so grateful that they're willing to even bring it to me rather than just abandon me, which is what happens a lot of the time, which I know no one can truly abandon me. I've got me. I can't be abandoned. But sure, we can say that till the cows come home. It still fucking sucks when someone you care about chooses that they don't want to be in your life anymore. For any reason, but especially if it's because of something that you've done. Even more so if it's something that you weren't aware of before the fact. And that has happened to me a lot. And that's data. I'm very data minded, right? Everything that happens to me, one of my catchphrases is literally, it's all good data. Even the bad shit, it's all good data. But some data is really hard to look at. And it's really hard to use it. Sometimes you gotta wait. Sometimes you gotta put that data on the back burner and just let it simmer. Let it go cold until you're ready. Until the parts of you that data is representing is ready to take it in and use it. And I got a lot of parts in here. That's what they don't often tell you about doing inner work, is how many fragments of yourself you'll meet along the way. Because everyone, before you start healing, you say things like you are broken, you feel broken. Even through healing, a lot of the time, you just feel so broken. But you never really think about the individual pieces as being whole on their own. And they are. There's all these fragments. You're not broken. You're a mosaic. All of those pieces form a whole. They do. But just like a fractal or a hologram, every time you zoom in, that's a whole identity too. And it just keeps going smaller. It's turtles all the way down. And the more of your turtles you meet, the more you learn to love them. I love all my turtles. Even the most problematic ones. But they get really protective of each other and of me. All your turtles kind of become your little turtle armor. Because throughout this work, you talk to your pieces, your individual components that have stored all of your experiences for you and have formed all your varying coping strategies over the years. They want to protect you. And they want to protect each other. But sometimes you've promised them at each interaction where you encountered them that they don't have to be afraid anymore. They don't have to implement these coping strategies, often maladaptive, in your defense anymore because you've got it. That's how you pull them out of the hell that they've been trapped in your psyche into the present, and you integrate them. You do that by teaching them that this, in the present, in you, is a safe place to be. And so when things that used to be very real threats in their past happen unexpectedly in your present, it can cause a little bit of chaos. Because initially it can feel a little bit like self-betrayal. All these parts in here are looking to you as a caretaker, as a parental figure, to protect them. And we've promised them that no one gets access to us physically, mentally, emotionally, intellectually, without our consent anymore. And for the most part, we're able to keep that promise. But every now and then you haven't done the extinction work on a pattern or a trigger in a specific circumstance. Which means that in that circumstance, that wiring is still very present, but you're unaware of it until it's triggered. And we know in behavioral psychology and psychopathology that is the only way most of the time to rewire old programming, old habits, old addictions, old trauma responses, all of it. You can't unlearn old programming one time. You learn the new programming, and that just kind of lays over top of the old programming. And the new programming can only apply to situations in which you have experienced the stimulus, and the new programming has had a chance for the experience to enter your awareness and the programming to consciously take over. And so when you meet an experience where that new programming has not had the chance to encounter it and integrate it yet, the old programming underneath is still your lowest level of training, so to speak, on how to respond to that situation. And so you have a lot of experiences in healing where you really think you're good, you're done, you did it. At least with that programming, you think, surely it's been long enough that I haven't had that old programming rear its ugly head. Surely I'm done now. We've encountered every possible scenario in which that could have been a problem, and it hasn't been a problem, so we're good. And then here comes a mirror. Some situation you never could have even conceived of. And all of these inner parts that are looking to you to protect them feel exposed. They feel unsafe. Because the feeling of safety is part of the new programming. And so when that happens, they feel betrayed. And they say, you lied to us. You said we would be safe, and we're not, clearly. So we're going to revert to the old programming because that's what we know will keep us safe. All of that to say, I really struggle to connect with people because my nervous system is wired still under the surface, deep down, to treat every potential connection as a potential threat. And there is a part of me deep down, I don't know that I've met this particular part yet, consciously, above the surface. They believe that if anyone truly knows me, like the deeper down anyone drills into the true essence of me, they will either abandon me or use it against me. Because that is what happened over and over and over and over in my childhood and my early adulthood. And don't get me wrong, a lot of it in my early adulthood was because there were all these wounds that were untended, and yeah, it kind of sucked to be around that. I'm not blaming those people for being like, you know what, I'm going to opt out. Valid choice, you know. And still to this day, lots of people may choose to opt out. And I would rather them opt out than stick around and make me feel like shit about myself. You know what I mean? So like, that's fine. It doesn't feel good, but that's fine. But every now and then there's someone that I really either just really want in my life because I care about them and enjoy them so much, or it's someone that I genuinely feel like I depend on for some of my load-bearing emotional needs, and they opt out. That sucks. It sucks a lot, especially when you've done so much work to prove to yourself that you can meet all of your own needs, that you don't need anyone else. But that's bullshit. We do need other people. We're physically, neurologically, biologically wired to need other people. We're not supposed to be solitary creatures who are just completely self-sufficient. That's not how we're wired. It's not how we're built. And yeah, you can learn how to get by and not just be miserable, but it's not the way we're wired. And so when someone has made it into my inner sanctum of needs, and then they opt out, there's a vacuum there. And that's happened to me so many times that it's become almost a self-protective measure to not let anyone fill that role. Because do you know how hard it is to fill a vacuum by yourself with something that's like another person shaped? Because people are so complex. We're all walking mosaics. So when someone fills a space within me, it's the most gorgeous shape that I've never seen before, always. And it's six-dimensional, and it's fragmented and glorious and magical and unique in ways that I can't even describe. And so when that shape leaves me, and I'm not prepared for that, there's no one thing that fills that void. You have to patchwork it. And when you're doing it yourself, you kind of just have to accept, like, it's not going to look like the same shape. You're never going to recreate that. And so it's a process of finding new and creative ways to fill little tiny portions of that whole, one at a time. And that takes a long time. And while you're filling that space with these little new pieces, you're building your inner infrastructure, which is fantastic, because then once that space is filled, it's real hard for somebody to mess with you in that way again. And while other people might come along and supplementarily meet some of those needs, fill some of those holes, those pieces, or not holes, but fill some of those, those needs, it's over top of what you've already built underneath. There's no emptiness under it that they're filling, right? But while you're in that process of filling that hole, there's still space there, and that space is filled with grief. And grief loves to eat away at pieces. It's like the nothing in Never-Ending Story. When it's not treated correctly, anyway. Grief doesn't have to be that way. You can contain it with love, but I think that's a different discussion. What really, really sucks is when you think you have filled all the holes left by the last round of abandonment, the last round of opting out of who you are, and someone comes along that is so special that even though you feel whole, you create space for them inside you. And almost all of my parts want me desperately to stop doing that. Because it really sucks when you create that space and they fill it beautifully. But then you look and there's a whole external part that doesn't quite fit in, and it just hangs heavy. And then they rightfully so acknowledge that this is not actually a good fit. While part of them is a great fit, there's this whole other part of them that's not. And they opt out. And now you, this previously gloriously whole human being, is left with another fucking vacuum. And it all starts over again. But unfortunately, blissfully, I think that is the whole point. Because when someone changes you in that way, when you are forced to deal with the emptiness of that vacuum with love and awareness, radical acceptance and curiosity of care. What do you need? How can I heal you? that does something to you psychologically. And every time that happens, it's like breaking a bone. It grows back stronger. It's like, what's it called? That Japanese concept where you take broken pottery and when you repair it, you fill the cracks with gold. That was not intentional. It makes you the most complex, six-dimensional, beautiful, reflective, glorious, magical being. And then you look around and you kind of start to realize that's how we all got this way. That's why we're mosaics. Each tiny little piece of us has been manually created in a moment where we realized there was something missing in us because we were getting it from someone else who's no longer able to give it to us for some reason or another. And we have to learn how to give it to ourselves. And then you realize that sometimes you are the one filling the star-shaped void in someone else. And that is why people react so strongly sometimes when you don't quite fit that mold. When the version of you they've created in their head is also filling a void in their soul, and you do something that makes them feel self-betrayal, of course they're going to react some type of way. And somehow, even though it's about you, it's so not about you. No more than it's about the other person that has stopped filling my voids in the way that I need them to. It's about the void itself. And the purpose of connection is not for it to stay here forever and be perfect in this little space forever, because guess what? You grow too. You change around this person and the needs that they're meeting. And the shape of the need itself changes. So you're changing and they're changing and your needs are changing and who they are is changing and how they're meeting their own needs and your needs, and everything is changing all of the time. So the real crime is expecting it to ever stay the same. Even yourself, especially yourself. But that doesn't mean that the change isn't uncomfortable and a lot of times painful. And I think for a long time I thought the trick to connecting with people was finding the perfect people to fit whatever needs I had at the time. And that's such an insult to the art that other people are, I think. Thankfully now, a lot of it in this very moment, I'm learning that connection isn't about finding the perfect person to fit a temporary shape within you. It's about learning all the ways that you are capable of filling those spaces when they occur. Because that phenomenon is its own kind of natural disaster meets creation event, I think. That is what changes you every step of the way. It is what is creating you always. And when you learn how to love all of these pieces, all of these parts, you learn how to love the whole too, every step of the way. And then a funny thing happens. You start to love the vacuum. You start to love the emptiness that you've previously been so desperate to fill with another person, because you know it's not a vacuum. It's not empty. It's a womb. It is a place of potential becoming. That is where all of the best future parts of you will be born. And suddenly that space becomes sacred, holy. It is the birthplace of your divinity. And the pain is part of that. And that is how you treat grief differently, by the way. You view it through that lens. You view pain as divine, as a magically jagged carving tool that creates masterpieces of godlike quality when you can sit with it, when you can let it be what it is, let it change you. So yeah, I struggle to connect with people. I forgot that was the original intention of this video. Because as much as I can sit and talk about how beautiful and glorious and divine this process is, it is the most challenging work of my life. Being wired to have the main goal, my main job be to figure out who other people want me to be so I can be safe. And then also having all these parts that are looking to me to not abandon myself. I was wired so that my main vehicle for connection is self-abandonment. That is the instinct every time. Still. I'm so grateful for the awareness I have of that, but that is still the instinct. And so it's this constant push-pull of this underlying fear. How much of myself can I truly be with this person before they will have seen too much and choose to opt out? Or how much of me do I need to abandon in order to be accepted by this person who I've decided I need for something? And the shitty part is, when I do fall into that programming and I abandon myself for the sake of being in connection with this person, I then subconsciously, sometimes consciously, expect them to do the same, to abandon themselves to the same degree that I've done. And when they don't do that, it registers to my nervous system as rejection, which is super fun because I don't want someone who would abandon themselves for me, because then I know that they will also expect me to abandon myself to the level that they have. I don't want that. So of course someone else doesn't want that. And of course that doesn't feel good when I do that to people. And so I feel like I'm sitting on this monster within me who just wants to give my entire self to someone else so that they can receive someone else's entire self in response, in return. Because that's what I used to have to do. I had to sacrifice myself in order to have my needs met. I won't get into the details of what that entailed, but that's what the arrangement was. So that's another part of why I view every potential connection as a potential threat to my safety. Because for a long time, it was only a matter of time before me being cared for was just a hot check written against the collateral of my safety, my wholeness, my self-worth. Every time I had a need met, it was only a matter of time before someone came to collect. It was all very transactional, and I was pretty much never on the positive receiving end of that arrangement. And then disappointing people was never safe. No was never safe. Me making mistakes was never safe. So I pull back a lot, even when I desperately want to be in connection with someone. There's always a little buffer there. At least a little, sometimes a much wider ravine of protective space there where I just don't show up. Especially if I feel like I'm in a space where I'm not my best self. I just don't show up. I don't present myself for critique. I don't remind people of my existence just in case they notice that I'm not enough. And then that might remind them of all the times I've been not enough. And they'll decide to opt out. If I just don't give people enough data to opt out, maybe they'll stay. Which is rich, because no one wants to stay connected to someone who's not connected to them. No one wants to stay connected to that empty space between us. But still, that's the programming, that feels safer than letting people in so they can have a look around and decide to opt out. These are my musings right now. Thanks for joining me on my journey of the universe forcing me to speed run as many of my lessons as possible while I'm working on getting my therapist license so that I have the tools I need to stay whole and sane and happy while I do this work for others. And even in this, I'm grateful for it. And I can't wait to meet all the pieces and parts of me that this is creating. It really does. It feels like when someone you love is having a baby. Just this overwhelming excitement and love and anticipation for who they're going to be, and this enjoyment of who they are in that moment when they first get to the world. That's how I've learned to start to feel about all these new parts of me. Because for a long time, the only parts I was interacting with were the ones from the past that I had not known about or engaged with. And I don't think I've ever heard anybody talk about this part of it before, where you reach a point where you and all the old parts are here and together and working relatively well together. And you love each other and you've got a working relationship. And then you get to watch as the new parts of you are born with awareness while it's happening. It's so healing and beautiful. And I'm so grateful for the fact that I get to do it forever. That is what life on this planet is for me now. And it's beautiful. I feel like a walking nursery garden. And then I get to package up these beautiful little parts of me, and I get to gift them to other people who love and appreciate them as much as I do, who help me protect them, who help me kind of co-parent them when they see these parts of me maybe going astray. Those are the people that I know how to stay connected with. And I'm so grateful to have those people in my life. And it's still hard. And that's okay. It really is. It's okay. The discomfort is okay. The pain is okay. It's all allowed. And when you can do that, that's where the magic lives. When you can hold space, let all the things be allowed. There's so much beauty in there too that you get to look at. I love you. I love you. You're doing great.